know, I make lots of videos to help new riders get onto two wheels. I have a playlist called Tips for New Riders, which I'll link around the video. You should be able to find it. And there is lots of videos in there to give you tips and things to help you go from having no bike to getting a bike, the licenses, understanding licenses, mechanical stuff, everything you can think of. Even full bike rebuilds I've done. So check out the channel and subscribe if you are new here and you like what you see. However, you may have seen recently, I did a video called the 5 life-saving checks that you can do to your bike. Basically, that is coming up to the winter, autumn, winter, when things are starting to change. There's a set of checks that everyone should do to their bike. I'm going to make a series of videos like this. Please do comment in the comments with suggestions of things, tips and tricks you know of, and maybe I'll correlate those together for future videos or other ones that I come up with. But basically, I think it would be really fun to make these short videos. This is a bit longer because I'm explaining it all, but we basically can get some short videos together that will have helpful tips in each one for new riders. I've also done videos on MOT checks and also checks on bikes when you go to buy them second hand, and that's going to lead me straight into today's video, which is 5 mistakes new riders make. These are in no particular order of importance, but they're 5 things I picked out that are important that new riders should be aware of. It may me help you stop you from making mistakes. So number 1 is do not trust a seller. When you buy a bike second hand, check that bike over or get someone to check it over before you ride it. You want to make sure that the brakes and everything's okay. The reason why is because people will sell you some sketchy stuff and hide some sketchy stuff because they want to sell you the bike. This is why you should check things before you buy the bike so you don't get into this. But if you have got a bike, it's still worth having it checked over to make sure there's nothing you've missed, because at the end of the day, it's your neck on the line, and the person who sold you the bike has no return to them if they've sold you something with some very dangerous things on it, because it was your position to check it. Number 2 on my list is a funny one that most of us have done at some point, but if we tell you, hopefully you won't do it, and it is to do with polish. I really like this Muck Off Speed Polish. This is not a sponsored video. In fact, they did offer to work with me in the past and wanted a contract, and I said no, because I don't work under contracts. I work under honesty with patrons. But yeah, I do like the Muck Off Speed Polish. And there are other products like this. You've got your nice new bike. It's nice and clean. You've cleaned it off and you're polishing it up and you're spraying everything. And then you're like, oh, look at that seat. That looks a bit, oh yeah, I know. And you polish up your seat. Never get polish on your seat. Also, never get it on your tyres or on your brake pads, discs, sorry, because obviously if you get it on the discs, when you get a brake, it's not going to work. But the brakes are the really bad one, but the really painful, well, that can also be really painful. Let's just get on with it. Getting it on the seat is an absolute nightmare because you actually want this to be a good amount of sort of traction on it. So with your jeans or your leathers or whatever, it grips. If you polish it, what will happen is every time you accelerate, you will shoot down the bike. And the first time this happened to me, and as I'm saying, we've all done it. I had a bike with like a bench seat, accelerated off the line. I slid near off the back of the bike. It was ridiculous. Then, of course, what happens is that when you brake suddenly, whatever front-mounted appendages you have gets slammed into the tank at a great speed. Don't get polish on your seat. It will hurt you whether you come off or not. So number 3 on my list is to do with levers, eBay levers, Chinese levers, short levers. Many people want to replace their stock levers for something a bit shorter. There's a few things to say to this. 1, if you make them too short and you can only get 1 or 2 fingers on, you're going to lose the effectiveness of your brakes. You really want to have a minimum of 3, but ideally all 4. As you can see with these, I can grab with all 4 still, but I can also use 2 further down the bar for more leverage. I'm happy with these levers the way that they are. What you definitely don't want to do is cut the balls off of your standard levers. I made this mistake in the past of thinking this was a good idea. The problem with it is that when it comes to MOT, I think you need to have some sort of a ball on there, or at least no sharp points. But the problem is, what can happen is as you pull it, if your hands are wet or something, your fingers can slip off the end and you basically let go of the lever. That ball helps retain your hand and improve the grip when braking in an emergency situation. There's no slippage because of it. So you really want to get levers like this, if you want to go for something shorter, that have the ball on the end still. Right, this then brings me on to sort of eBay levers and Chinese levers. Now these are Chinese levers. Lextech sent me these a couple of years ago to fit on the bike when I was doing a build series. They've been on here ever since, and I actually really like them. I'd like some of these on my DR, but they don't sell ones for my DR. So these are Chinese, no doubt. but they're actually pretty good. As I say, it's been a couple of years, all the mechanics in them still work, there's no corrosion, they're nicely made, there's not too much wobble or anything. I like them. I've seen some Chinese levers which are absolutely awful. As long as you get reasonable quality ones, everything's fine. But even with these ones, I did these checks because there's a few things about them that can be wrong because they're not OEM or they're not specifically designed for your bike, where they get some geometry wrong and it doesn't work properly. And there's a few things you need to make sure works. One of them is there is a switch underneath that the lever will press on, which turns on your brake light. So it comes on about there, but the braking doesn't start till about here, so you need to make sure the geometry is working on that, so you get the brake light coming on every time. The other thing is you obviously have the plunger, because this is the brake side with a hydraulic brake. The plunger has to be pushed in the exact right place. There is a bit of movement on this bike, but some it's very, it needs to be exactly where it needs to be. If that's slightly off, if the hole in there is too deep and it doesn't depress the pin enough or something, it causes problems, don't use them. They're not going to help you brake. So that's the braking side. The clutch side has its own issue unless you have a hydraulic clutch. So on the clutch side, there is another switch here which lets the bike know if the clutch is pulled in or not. So you need to make sure that that's disengaging properly. Now for the clutch pull itself, if it's hydraulic, you need to check the plungers in line like with the brake side. If it's not, if it's cable, which I'm guessing most of you have got, you need to make sure that that cable is coming straight out. It is not being pulled down too far, it's not rubbing on anything, because what happens is over time it frays the cable and it will snap. Having a snap clutch is a massive pain. It's basically unrideable. You can, well, I'm not going to get into that. New riders probably haven't got the skill to do it, but you can do it. You shouldn't. You should just get recovery. It will end up cutting through your cable, so do not allow it to rub. If it looks like it's rubbing at all, don't use those levers. Get something that fits. Seriously. As for finding good eBay levers, I can't help you there. I don't know if you can trust the reviews at all, but if you know someone who's got some and they've used them for a while and they seem to be good and they work for your bike, then it can be okay. But do those checks, the switches, the alignment of everything, make sure nothing's rubbing, and don't accept a little bit of rubbing. Seriously, I know you might be like, it's only a tiny bit, it's fine. Don't, no, just no. Okay, so number 4. This is kind of multi-layered. 1, make sure you're actually doing chain maintenance, like making sure the tension's correct. I have videos on that. It's not difficult. It takes 5 minutes. Make sure you're actually cleaning the chain before lubing it. Don't just keep re-lubing, because that just gets you into a horrible gunky mess. I normally put it up on a paddock stand like this, or you can put it on the ground and do the longest section and then push it along a bit and then do the next section. But these aren't expensive. They're well worth investing in, at least for the rear. So the way I clean my chain is I'll spray it with some chain degreaser, chain cleaner, leave it for 10 minutes, spray it on here, spin this, spray it, spin it, and then come along with my brush, which is like one of these square brushes, and manually clean, up and down, all sides, turn it a bit, do the same thing. It's easier if you do it on the sprocket because it's pressed against something and you can clean up against it, but you also want to get some of the inside down here. The obviously tempting thing to do is to turn the bike on and just hold this in place. The problem is simply this: when the bike's wheel is turning with the motor, you'll notice that the chain's feeding in and going through here. So if your little hand somehow gets into this bit, it's not pleasant, is it? To think. And number 5 on my list is, no, your bike's not broken. If it was starting a minute ago and now it won't, and I don't get it, but it's turning over, and hold on. It could be because you don't have a Spicy 110 keychain. I'm just joking. But you can get them, links in the description. Beef ones too. Okay, so a lot of you will know about the kill switch. This switch stops the bike running. So if you look, I'll try and start it, it won't start. If you switch it on, the bike runs. And if you switch it off, the bike goes off. Okay, great. Now here's the scenario. You get on your new machine, it's probably Chinese. You start the engine, everything's absolutely fine. You then stop the engine, put the bike on the side stand, go inside, put your helmet and your gloves on, and your jacket, and all the other gear that you need. And then you go out and you try and start it. And it won't start. It's just going and won't start. And you know what the hell's wrong with it? Not everyone who's new to bikes knows about this. Okay, so I'm going to start the bike in neutral. No problem. And on this bike, I can put the side stand down with the bike in neutral and nothing happens. On some Chinese bikes and some other brands, that will kill the engine, because on all bikes, if it's in first, and I'm going to have the clutch pulled in here, but you will see the back wheel turn a little bit. If it's in first gear and you put the side stand down, it turns off the bike. The reason this is done is if you have the bike on the side standing first and you try and start it with the clutch not pulled in and it actually tries to start, the bike's going to jump forwards, and the stand's going to go back and it's going to fall over, because most bikes only have to get the stand to about there before they'll collapse. It's this point past centre that holds them in place. It also stops you from pulling away with the side stand out, which works out great if you're turning right, but as soon as you turn left, it'll pivot and you'll come off. There is no reason that the bike shouldn't run in neutral with the side stand down, but as I say, some of the Chinese bikes don't let you do it. And it's annoying because it means you have to sit on it to warm it up. But yeah, if your bike was working and then isn't and it's Chinese, side stand. So there you go, there is 5 common mistakes new riders make. I've made them, I'm talking from experience, there is no embarrassment in it, we've all been through it. But things like, polish on the seat. For me saying that to one of you, you might go, oh, I didn't even think about that, I won't do that. You may not even thought that you would. You'll probably think to yourself, I'd never put polish on my seat. I'd never be that stupid. Well, you just wait. You're going to do some dumb things too. If you've enjoyed this video, please do subscribe to the channel and leave a like. The sun comes out and everything's grand. Don't worry, it'll go away in a minute. As I say, leave some comments, suggestions, tips and stuff in the comments of this video. I will correlate stuff together if I see some good ones that I don't think of. There's millions of these things, and I can make these like 5, 6 things that are good tips to know, little tidbits of information. Like with my video, which was the life-saving tips, not only do they serve as tips for new riders, they also serve as reminders for old riders who are going, oh yeah, I should have done that a while. How long's it been? 8 months? Oh yeah, I probably should get around to doing that. There have been videos in the past where I've pointed out things like the DRZ's front sprocket nut coming undone, and someone checked it from that video and discovered theirs was loose. That one person checking and discovering that could have saved them having a crash. So that's why I think these videos are well worth making. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.